morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Wait, it's not morning. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I am choosing violence. And I'm going to talk about all the books that I will probably never read. So let's get into it. But don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also comment below a book that you're just never going to buy into the hype of and you're never going to read. I really want to know. First up, Anna Huang. You may think, being primarily a romance reader and fantasy, that I would love her books or that I would definitely be willing to give them a go, but I just feel like I already know they're just not going to be for me from the things I know about the plots, from the types of tropes that are in them. I think they lean slightly more on the dark romance side as well, which is not really a genre that I ever reach for. And I know that the newest series, I think, is like billionaire romance. Again, just not a trope I'm interested in. You cannot make me feel sorry for a billionaire. I simply won't do it. But yeah, and then also like twisted love and stuff. I know people say like book one isn't great. Just cannot bring myself to sit through two mediocre books just to get to a good one. So no, we'll never be doing Anna Huang's books. Number two, Freida McFadden. Don't hate me. Basically, I read The Inmate. I'm sorry to say that I thought it was one of the worst thrillers that I've ever read. I was so mad that I didn't DNF it. I wanted to DNF it, but also like I was reading it so fast, and I thought, well, if I'm reading it this quick, I might as well give it until the end in case the plot twist is really good. Should have DNF'd. The main character was single-handedly the dumbest main character that I've ever read. Everything that happened to her in the plot could have been avoided if she used, her little noggin a little bit more, but she didn't. And one of my book besties read The Crash, didn't like it. It's just not for me. I'm gonna move on to the thrillers that I know are good. Lightlark. From what I've heard of this is quite simple in the sense that there's not much word building going on. The names are all kind of what you would expect given the theme of the book. It's just not that in depth, which is absolutely fine. Obviously, it's YA romantasy, so I think that this is great for that age range and probably a great entry book into the genre. But for me, as someone who is experienced in fantasy, romantasy, anything like that, I don't think that this is probably going to be up there as a 4 or a 5-star read for me. So then why would I bother even doing it? I've also seen people give the last book really low reviews that loved book 1 and 2, so that also just puts me off even more. Binding 13. Okay, so originally I didn't want to read this because I had heard that the author was a Zionist. However, in literally last week, she has come out and said that she's not, and she's educated herself, which is great. But since then, I've also found out that the themes of her book are particularly dark and heavy, from one of my closest friends who loves her books. So the types of things that are in her books, I just don't want to read about. Not because I don't think they should be written about, quite the opposite, but I just think it's just going to be not triggering, but it's just not going to put me in a good mind frame, and I read for escapism, so that's not the kind of themes that I am trying to read about, if that makes sense. I also have friends that think I won't get on with the writing style, which is probably true if they think that. They know me pretty well, so it probably is not going to be a series for me all round. The Wheel of Time. This one is less of a I'll never read this and more of a I can't see myself reading this. My dad wants me to read these so bad. My dad has the same kind of fantasy book taste as me, sci-fi, dystopian, and he has read a lot of what is my favourite books in those genres, but he always tells me to read The Wheel of Time, and I just cannot commit to that many books in a series. I already have big book fear, so then when there's like 14 big books, no, I can't see myself ever being brave enough to commit to that. If you've read them, please let me know if it's worth it. I want to read them, but I'm also like, oh my god, my TBR is out of control. Like, when am I ever gonna want to read 14 big books? And if the plot follows on, which I don't actually know if it does, but if the plot follows on in each book, you need to kind of read them relatively close together as well, or at least I would, because I would forget the plot. So I don't know, I just can't see myself reading them. Rena Kent books, I actually don't know too much about these other than they are dark romance. They're huge, I know that, but I'm just not really a dark romance girly. I don't judge anyone that reads it, anyone that wants to enjoy it, you do you. I really don't care. But it's just not for me. I've never really gelled with dark romance. I don't know what it is, because I love dark things and I love romance. I love things that are gothic. I love things that are violent. Like, in theory, I should love it, but I just have never read one that's wowed me. Occasionally, I'll do mafia romance as a palate cleanser if I'm like in a really bad slump. I did do the Som Sketcher Sinners series. I did enjoy them, but never has there been a dark romance series that's been like over 4 stars for me. So I just can't see myself ever reading these, even though they are everywhere at the minute, all over my For You page on BookTok. Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is probably going to shock some people, because obviously I am a romantasy reader and I haven't read most of the big ones, even though I don't talk about a few anymore. I have read them all, but I was really disappointed with the Caraval series. I loved book 1. Caraval itself was a 5-star read for me. Loved Scarlet, loved Julian, loved the world, loved the magic system, like loved everything about it. Book 2 kind of went to like a 3-star. I really didn't like Teller's POV, and then book 3 was like a 2-star, should have DNF'd, because the plot just meandered so badly. Like, what the heck was going on? I have since found out that it was only ever supposed to be a standalone, which does make sense as to why maybe the plot doesn't flow as well as some other series that were planned as series from the beginning. But then onto the spin-off series, Once Upon a Broken Heart, I have heard that it much goes the same way, in that the last book is a bit of a letdown, and I just don't want to commit to a series if the ending isn't going to be good. And the people that have said this to me are people that tend to feel quite similarly to me with books, in the sense that they are a little bit on the harsher side. So I just don't think I'm going to do it, because I was already disappointed with 2 out of the 3 books in the Caraval trilogy, and then this one is apparently a disappointment at the end anyway. Game of Thrones, you might think it's for the same reasons of The Wheel of Time, but actually it's not. I watched the show for Game of Thrones, and I am one of the only people on the planet that did not like it. And everyone used to say to me, no, you just need to stick with it, you need to get to the Red Wedding, you need to get to the Red Wedding. I got to the Red Wedding, what happened? They killed off my favourite character, so that made me even less likely to want to watch it, to be quite honest. So anyway, I tried the show 3 times, and it never got past the Red Wedding. I just found it so boring. There's so many characters, they all die really quickly. Maybe the books are different and you do get to see more of that character development, but I'm also just like, if they're not different, I'm going to be mad, you know? Priory of the Orange Tree. Again, big book fear. This book is huge. She is not a book, she is a doorstop. Like, she could be used as a weapon of mass destruction, if you asked me. I did actually buy this for my cousin a few years ago. She also likes fantasy books, and she enjoyed it, but she said it was a bit slow, and that is the general kind of feeling I get from people when I see their reviews. It was good, but it was slow, and a lot could have been cut out of it. And it is, obviously I think there's like a spin-off, but it is, or can be read as a standalone, and so it's not like you read that book and then you have this other books in the series that are faster paced, or like there's tons of action in them, which quite often happens in fantasy. So I just feel like maybe this just isn't one for me. Any more Scarlett St. Clair books? So I read the A Touch of Darkness first 3 books, and I just thought they were fine. I gave them all 3 stars, and this was back when I was reading all the big romantasy series like Plated Prisoner, Zodiac Academy, like anything like that, and I was giving all of them 5 stars. So for me to give them 3 stars when I was giving everything 5 stars means that they would probably now be a DNF. I remember that I found Persephone, the female main character, the most insufferable FMC that I had ever read at that point, and I can still remember how frustrated I was reading her POVs. I did like the love interest, and I did like the world that Scarlett had created, but the plot was also not great and the spice was not great and there was a lot of spice. I just don't think she is an author who balances fantasy and romance in the way that I want. I think she puts romance first, fantasy second, which is obviously fine. That's a lot of people's preference, but it's not mine. I like my fantasy quite fleshed out. I really just prefer high fantasy with a romance subplot. I think I'm finding as I get older. I think that's why I loved the Cruel Prince trilogy so much. It's because like there's so much politics and magic and fantasy plot, and then Carden and Jude are actually just kind of a small subplot, but it makes you yearn for it so bad that when you do get these snippets of them, you're like, oh, finally, you know? So yeah, I just don't think, unless she does something drastically different, I don't think she's an author for me. The Shadow and Bone trilogy, I had these on my shelf for so long and I just never had any urge to pick them up. Then I watched the TV show and I really did not like it. I don't know if the TV show was just not made well, because obviously that happens a lot of the time with screen adaptations, like they just don't do the book justice. So it could well have been that that was the problem, but it just made me even less likely to pick up the books and I eventually sold them. So I just don't think I'll ever come back to them now. I am, however, interested in Six of Crows because I have so many mutuals with similar taste who love that duology. So what I might do is just like read the synopsis for Shadow and Bone and then do Six of Crows. The Book of Night by Holly Black. I love Holly Black. I literally have a Cruel Prince tattoo. There she is, my toadstools. But I've not seen a single person say that this book is a must read, that they loved it, that it's really good. I've only seen people kind of say it's boring and it's slow and they didn't love it. And those are people that read dark academia, whereas I'm not massively into dark academia. I found that I only like dark academia when it has a lot of fantasy or a lot of romance. I need something else to balance it out because I'm just not a very academic person. So I just don't think this is going to be a book for me by Holly, and I don't want to read anything by her that's going to taint my view of her, because to me she is like saint of books, you know? So I'm just going to leave that one. And finally for today, Neon Gods. I actually follow Katie Roberts on a lot of platforms because I think she's really cool as a person. She seems to stand for a lot of the things that I stand for. She's really loud in her activism, which I really appreciate and find quite aspirational. But I don't think I'm personally going to like her books, again, because they slightly lean into like darker romance. I know it's romantasy as well, but it's darker. And also I think they're heavy on the smut, whereas I prefer like 10% smut, 90% plot. So I just don't think I'm the audience that is made for those books, but I really like her as a person. So I hope she does something one day where I can read it, just so I can support her financially, if nothing else. But that is an overview for today of some of the books that I don't think I'll ever read. There's probably a lot more, but those are the immediate ones that spring to mind. Like I said, if you have any that you're not going to read, drop them in the comments below, or if you agree with me on any, also drop that below. I would love to hear your thoughts on these as well. But otherwise, I will see you next Monday for another video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really helps us out. But otherwise, have a great week. Love you. Bye.